The room was bathed in darkness, silence reigning supreme, only interrupted by the sporadic coughing of a cadet seated towards the back. The lights had been turned off, and the projector was already on, as the head instructor entered the room. "Good morning, class," he began, his voice carrying a weight that made the cadets sit up straighter. "I have bad news and bad news." The atmosphere in the room grew tense as the instructor continued, confirming the worst fears that had been circulating as rumors. Official reports have confirmed that yesterday, near the disputed SX 9318 star system, the Korean destroyer KFS Rika D-9063 attacked and sank our cargo ship Steelwell. The revelation hung in the air, like a dense fog, the cadets absorbing the gravity of the situation in stunned silence. The silence that followed was deafening, a stark contrast to the tension that filled the room as they tried to process the implications. It was clear to them that the attack wasn't unprovoked, despite what propaganda might argue. The skirmishes along the borders had been escalating for months, and the fact that authorities were being cagey about the exact coordinates of the incident only confirmed suspicions that the Italian ship might have indeed been in Korean space. As the instructor spoke, it became apparent that the political landscape was rapidly deteriorating. Our politicians are doing their best to escalate these solvable issues into a war, while our diplomats are working tirelessly to prevent it. The cadets, weeks away from graduation, felt a wave of unease wash over them. The reality of their situation was sinking, and they knew that if war broke out, it would be them freshly graduated cadets who would be thrust into the front lines. The jokes about being fresh meat for the grinder were no longer funny. The instructor, sensing their anxiety, attempted to provide some reassurance. "As much as I have faith in you and in my training, I want to give you some actual advice from someone with experience in these sorts of things." The room remained tense, but the cadets listened intently, eager for any wisdom that might help them survive the storm that seemed to be brewing on the horizon. With a deliberate slowness, the instructor reached for the projector's remote, and a slide appeared on the screen, the words "Know your enemy" in bold letters. This lecture was supposed to be a farewell speech, where I'd share tips on how to survive encounters with pissed-off higher-ups, he said, a wry smile on his face. "But given the current situation, I've prepared something else for you. It's a bit barren in content, but I'll make up for it by boring you to death with my speech." The cadets couldn't help but chuckle, the instructor's humor lightening the mood, if only slightly. But the gravity of the situation quickly returned as he continued. "Put down your pens and crayons. There will be nothing to memorize today, just things to keep in your heart." The cadets, a bit confused, complied, setting aside their note-taking materials. The instructor paused, allowing the silence to settle back into the room before continuing. "You've studied culture and military history and psychology. You might think you know your enemy, but as the title suggests, those aren't your true enemies." The room was filled with a mix of uncertainty and anticipation as the cadets listened. Their allies, the instructor said, are the real concern. The coalition of the first time is a strong regional power with an experienced fighting force. They've fought and won a war against the Union, and our intelligence confirms that no member of the coalition intends to support the Cultians in this conflict. The cadets absorbed this information, understanding the implications of such a powerful alliance remaining neutral. "There's an unwritten agreement between the coalition and our own alliance to avoid a regional war in this part of the Milky Way," the instructor explained. However, despite these assurances, the cadets couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The instructor's tone shifted, hinting at a new variable in the equation that could upset the precarious balance. "Worry not," he said, attempting to calm the room. "Everything suggests this skirmish will be nothing out of the ordinary," but his words were followed by a pause that suggested otherwise, a moment that hung heavy with unspoken possibilities. The instructor let the silence linger, allowing the cadets to contemplate the implications of his words. A little new variable in the equation, he repeated, his tone grave. The projector flickered to the next slide, revealing a single word: specters. The room was deathly silent as the instructor began to explain. "There's a saying that we Italians have a haunting past, that the ghost of violence always follows us. But let me tell you, that ghost is just a specter. It doesn't exist." The cadets shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the instructor's words resonating with an eerie truth. "We are no longer what we were," he continued. "We've grown, we've changed, and we're nowhere near what we were in the past." The instructor's voice softened, as if he was speaking to each cadet individually. "The ghost of violence is just that, a ghost. We as a society, as a species, are no longer capable of the atrocities of our past." The room felt colder, the weight of history pressing down on the cadets as they grappled with the realization that they were the inheritors of a legacy they barely understood. The instructor's tone shifted once again. drawing the cadets back from their introspective thoughts. "But I wouldn't be giving this speech if there wasn't a reason," he said, his voice firm. "So let me present to you the real threat that could be looming over us." The projector clicked, revealing the next slide. Humans, a murmur ran through the room, the cadets exchanging uneasy glances. "These are the real wild cards," the instructor said, his voice taking on a somber tone. A silhouette in the room raised a hand, asking why humans, of all species, were considered a greater threat than the Cultians, known for their physical strength and warrior culture. The instructor nodded, as if expecting the question. "As you know, humans are a relatively recent addition to the Coalition's roster," he explained. "They're known for their origin as Deathworlders and their cheerful, carefree behavior. But that's only a facade." The cadets listened intently, the instructor's words casting a shadow over their understanding of the galactic order. The room grew colder as he continued. "We believe humans have the strongest military in the Orion Arm, possibly the single most powerful military force in the known galaxy." The revelation caused a stir among the cadets, their excitement mixed with a palpable sense of dread. The instructor waited for the room to settle before continuing. "That aside, we have reason to believe they're not interested in interfering in our skirmish, so you can sleep well knowing that." A young officer, still processing the information, asked why humans were even mentioned if they posed no direct threat. The instructor paused, allowing the question to hang in the air before responding. "And with this," he said, "let me move on to the next slide." The projector revealed a single word: shadow. The room fell silent, the cadets sensing the gravity of what was to come. Given the context, the instructor began, "You know the difference between a ghost and a shadow." The cadets exchanged puzzled glances, trying to guess the answer, but none succeeded. "Specters, as I said before, aren't real. Shadows are. Shadows follow us everywhere. They cannot be faded away, not even by the strongest ray from the brightest star." The room was filled with an eerie silence as the instructor's words sunk in. "Shadows run just as fast, if not faster than us," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "Despite our best efforts, we can never part ways with them. Humans. Humans have the scariest, deepest shadow." The cadets were unnerved, the weight of the instructor's words pressing down on them like a physical force. "While we are incapable of replicating our past," he continued, "humans' potential for destruction grows hand in hand with their technological innovation. And that's why their shadow grows darker and wider with each passing hour." The cadets were silent, the gravity of the situation settling in. The instructor's words painted a picture of a future fraught with uncertainty and danger. "It's no longer just a pool of darkness," he said, his voice carrying the weight of countless generations. "It's an abyss filled with the horrors of their past and the unimaginable possibilities of the future. The shadow of war has and will always accompany humans until the heat death of the universe." The instructor paused, allowing his words to resonate in the silent room. "Thankfully," he continued, "the Terrans are aware of the miasma of death that follows them like a wicked puppy, and they do everything possible to keep it in check. But the problem is, we don't know what could cause them to let go of the leash holding back their war monster." The cadets exchanged uneasy glances, the instructor's words leaving them with a sense of impending doom. "We don't know what would be crossing the line with humans because, truthfully, they themselves don't know what that line would be." The room was filled with a heavy silence, the cadets absorbing the weight of the instructor's final words. The instructor's voice was steady as he delivered his last piece of advice. "When on the front lines, remember these words. If you see a Terran ship, do not attack it, do not approach it, if possible. Order all your forces to stand down or even retreat. If you see the blue globe with white continental lines on the side of a ship, be it a random cargo hauler or an insignificant mining drone, try to contact it immediately and help them out in any way possible." The room was filled with a tense silence as the cadets processed the instructor's words. It could even be a setup to drag humans into the conflict for all, but you must do everything in your power not to give them a reason to unleash the war monster that hides in their shadow. The instructor's words hung in the air, the weight of his message pressing down on the cadets like a physical force. "Remember," he said, his voice carrying the weight of countless generations of wisdom, "the revised Geneva Convention dictates how to conduct war between humans. It's a well-thought-out treaty that limits the use of much of humanity's weaponry. But the problem is, as you might have guessed, we are not humans." The room was filled with a heavy silence as the instructor delivered his final words. "So by the gods, don't give them a reason to use us as target practice for their untested arsenal, please." If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. For every comment that says we will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.